Anyone that builds an aircraft at some point has to make a decision on which aircraft engine they will want to fly behind. And we suggest, before making that big decision, maybe step beyond talking to the salesman and sign up for an actual engine workshop like this one by ARION Aircraft and the Jabiru. Or you can take a look under the cowling to see the installation onto a firewall and learn a bit about maintenance. There are several engine manufacturers out there that offer this sort of class. Here is one example. Some highlights from the recent Jabiru engine workshop.
The bottom end of it, down here in the bottom, you can see where the lifters go on the sides of the heads. I think everybody's got ones. That one actually, that's a true
That
Gen
one
3.
in the very back is a Gen 3
Gen 3.
only. And then put pressure on the cylinder, right? And what we're gonna do, adjust that knob so that you're still reading 80 pounds, what you're putting to it. And you can see this gauge over here move, the second one, as you move the prop. Ideally, we want to be where there's no pressure fighting against you with the prop. We're going to rock it just a little bit, and you can see that needle move. You don't want to come way off to where it's really trying to push the prop out of your hand, right? Just kind of rock it a little bit until this needle comes up, and you've got it'll move 2 to 4 pounds or so. We don't crank this down. There's not a torque spec. We just kind of snug it up. Whenever you buy these, they come with a rubber O-ring. Take them off. Use a washer off of an old spark plug. They seal up much, much better.
Jason, do they spec the orifice size on the?
Yes. Yes. This one is for
40,000?
I don't know the size. It's for the Rotax, because the displacement is pretty close to the same. It says on there somewhere.
Only reason I bring
But this
it up,
is the smaller one. Yeah.
there's multiple sizes, and
Yep.
sometimes I've done it, and I had a cheaper made one with a very small orifice, and I thought I had a problem, and
Yep.
then when I used the right size orifice, it turned out I didn't have any problem.
Yeah, if you buy one for a 540 or 360 or something, there's larger displacement. The orifices are bigger. It lets air go through faster, and it'll give you a better reading on this than you think you have. Everybody knows where your cylinders, the designation on them, 1 through 6. We start in the very front. These are offset by half of a cylinder. We start in the very front. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There it is. Okay. So don't worry about that right now. So come here and pull this until it gets to about, and you'll be able to feel the magnets back here on the ignition system. Just go kind of quick. Can you feel them, sort of?
Yeah.
And just want them to stop right in this area. Okay? So that's where we're going to go. Doesn't have just a little bit of movement. Nothing I would be concerned about. But the bottom one did have a touch of movement. That's the reason we do the head torques. I like to go across this bottom row that gets all of these, skip this next row, and come to the top one and go straight across. What you're doing is you're going in a triangle pattern like that. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Once I do that next to the top row, I'll come back down to this row and go across. So I'm going on one head, I'll be going in this triangle pattern and then straight across, and I'll reverse that triangle pattern. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Yep. So all the way across the bottom, skip a row and come up all the way across the second from the top, drop back down, and then come up and do the top one. So at annual, we want to check the top washer thickness. With it on the engine, we'll use a vernier caliper and set it at 1.3 millimeters or 511 thousandths, and we'll use this little tab back here at the end as a go no go gauge. So bring both of your rocker arms all the way out. Both valves are closed, and then you want to look down on it place this on the face of the valve spring top washer and kind of look down on it and use this as a
That's white. That's white.
too much light.
Yeah. Okay. So you're measuring.
And then look and see where your little tab comes out, as long as it's not, the top washer is at least that thick. So on this, it's easier to see. This is what you're measuring here. And then I'm going to check it again. My 10 goes in really easy. My 12 is a touch on the loose side. So whenever I loosen this up, I'll keep just a little bit of back pressure on my adjuster so that it don't turn a lot, right? And I'll back it off just till it loosens. Then I'm going to tighten it back down and let that adjuster turn just a touch since we was on the loose side. And check it again. 10 feels pretty good. 12 is a little on the tight side. 10 feels good.
Dynon Avionics at Dynon.com, offering everything from state-of-the-art glass cockpit options to advanced control modules that power and control your entire aircraft. Gratia Aero Group at GratiaAero.com, proudly representing these best-in-class brands for experimental general aviation. Sherwings, BD Aviation, and MW Fly. KFA, Kitplanes for Africa, engineered for adventure and built for the bush is their motto, offering several STOL-kit aircraft options like the Expedition, Safari, Bush Baby, and Explorer. Find them online at kitplanesforafrica.co.za. Visit us online at experimentalaircraftchannel.com for all things DIY aviation. And consider supporting us on our Patreon page to help us bring you more original aviation content.
So a little bit of engine oil on it. We go in, we don't just stick it in there, right? You're supposed to have it turning first. Don't have your drill on super speed, 30,000 RPMs. You're just gonna glaze it over again. So low speed, and I'll do 10 strokes, wipe it out, clean the oil out, and look at it. Sometimes it'll take a little bit more, but that's all there is to honing one out. You want to make sure you have those cross hatches in there, that it's not nice and shiny. So this first corrugated ring there, I put toward the either side. The thin ring I put with it, and somebody's going to question me on this. You will. Because the way I'm doing it. Flip this over, and then the ring gap on the second one, I like to put exactly 180 degrees out from the other one. That's not a problem. So whenever we get to these second rings, they are two different rings. If you look in the manual, it's got a picture of the end grain of it. This got a notch cut out on the top, and on the top of the ring, you'll have to look real good. You have to wipe it off and get it a little bit oily. There's an R stamped in the top. It's very, very faint. That goes toward the crown of the piston. Valve lapping tool, and we turn it. I don't put it on high speed. You can hear it work, and then all of a sudden it'll go away. I relieve just a little bit of pressure and then put it back on there. And it's not a heavy pressure, it's just kind of like the weight of the drill motor almost, I guess is. I'll do that for 10, 20 seconds maybe, and then pop the valve back out. Wipe that compound off of there. And look at it, and you should have a nice uniform color all the way around. But what you're really going to be checking, because I know the valve's going to be good because it's the one rotating. We just checked to make sure it was true. This is where I want to look mainly, and I'll put a little bit of acetone on my rag or something so I can really get that stuff cleaned up and look at it. But now, remember it was real shiny. Now there's a nice matte gray all the way around it, right? You Yeah.
Yep.
So we know that I've got that lapped in good. I don't have a rear seal on this. I know it's going to leak bad. So, if you ever have to get in here, your rear seal is leaking, you need to pull it off. You don't have dowel pins in your crank and you're going to pull this off and drill that, whatever. What we want to do first is bring this up to top dead center on number 1. Okay? Get you in this general vicinity. You remember this, the crank gear here? It's got this little hole. It's a reference, it's a timing hole that lines up with the crank. So whenever you get all this off, before you, don't touch these, okay? Leave them right where they're at. Make sure they stay there until you get to this point. We're going to come in here and remember the little divot that's hard to see. I've marked this one so it's easier to see. The same on this cam gear. I've marked those so that you can see them. The very first thing that I do, I've got a rag and some acetone. I'll wipe the oil off of the distributor gears and the cam gears. I'll put 1 mark here and 2 here. Over here, I'll put 1 mark on the cam gear and 2 on the distributor gear, so I can't get them mixed up.
So the first thing on my list here I'm going to go through is start on the air ducts. That's what I always like to talk about first. The air ducts for the Jabiru. They come with your engine, new engine, old engine should have them. We have the old ones in stock, you know, the old design for you if you need new ones. But they're really critical in the way the engine cools, and that's part of the first thing is getting these installed right. Made it up to the cowling correctly, and all the other parts on it so your engine cools, because that's part of the cooling problems we hear about is usually goes right back to the air ducts not being installed.
Is there any baffling on the inside?
Yeah, and so we'll show that here in just a second. But this is the fiberglass air duct that comes with it. Jabiru does send these cute little metal tabs. We've painted them black. They're on there to carry the loads, not the loads, but to basically not to wear out the holes in the fiberglass where the air duct falls out. On the inside of the air duct, you'll notice that the front of it has a dam on the front. Okay, that goes about halfway up the cylinder, so that initial airflow in there doesn't dive down onto the cylinder and you lose air. So that's going to cover that up, and it seals up about halfway up the cylinder. Then we've got 2 more baffles inside of it right here. Okay, one over and they're right over the middle of the cylinders. There's one here and one here. Apparently in this installation we decided that we didn't need to have one over the number 2 cylinder, but you might depending on your airplane and your cowling. These are put in, and then you can see we've kind of, this one's trimmed out to fit over spark plugs and stuff. This one they relieved it a little bit for airflow. But the idea behind these is when you install this and you get it bolted on here and you start flying your airplane, if you have, you know, like, oh, my middle cylinder is hot all the time. Well, we have a baffle here. We make it a little bit bigger so it has more air in it. But maybe these 2 cylinders are cooling really, really well, but this one's hotter back here. We'll actually trim off the middle cylinder, let it warm up, and let the one behind it cool down. So it's kind of a balancing act between all 3, and the best thing to do is fly it, make notes, and make small changes as you go along with your flying to get them to all even out. You probably will never get them to be the same temperatures from here, here, and here, but you might get the front 220, 250, 300. You can probably get them across the board to match, but you usually never get them all 3 the same, because the front one's always going to cool better than the back one. But you know, there's no reason they can't all cool really, really well anyways. So, okay, so we do have those in there. On the Generation 4 engines, there's a little spring right here and a little clip that gets riveted on. That goes to there's a little tab up in the front that holds the front of the air duct down so it doesn't blow up in flight. You know, you build a bunch of pressure up in here, it wants to try to come off. So on the Gen 4s, they've done that with them. The Gen 1, 2, and 3 engines, they had a piece of safety wire around the cylinder with the hook in the middle. That's what we use when we're doing all this. We find that we get it from a MasterCar or some other suppliers. You can get this stuff. But 4-gauge welding cable for all your main grounds, all your big battery lines and stuff like that. It's a nice soft braided copper line, so it goes around corners really nice. It's easy to crimp terminals onto, so we like to use that. Okay, Any questions there? No? The back of that flywheel there is where the stator is. We showed all that in class. We have a stator. Now, there's a lot of wiring going on here because of a few other things, but our regulator rectifier is back here on the firewall. We've got 2 heavy wires going up to our starter, or to our stator, and you end up having to lengthen those because when you get your engine has like a 6-inch or 8-inch pigtail on it, and it's not long enough to do anything. So that's one of the situations where we tell you 16 gauge wire, 14 to 16 gauge wire, and they go ahead and solder that. You know, make a hard connection, a solder connection, and go to your regulator rectifier over here. Okay. Now on the regulator, when you're installing the regulator and you're installing the engine will have 2 white wires on it, and the regulator has 2 blue wires. All right. And it doesn't matter really which one you hook it up to because it's AC power, and the regulator doesn't care. So there's 2 wires. It doesn't matter which way you connect them. Okay.
That's a stinky engine.
This one's stinky?
That's a stinky one.
I don't smell it.
I think it must be going low.
Yeah.
And thank you to our team over on Patreon for helping to make this channel possible. And shout out to our co-pilot status patrons, Zach Newsom and Mike Babcock. To you watching, consider supporting us over on patreon.com.